Hi guys, welcome to Little Wicket Railway. I'm Rob, and in this video we're looking at the Hornby Hitachi IET Class 800 train pack in the GWR Pride livery, also known as Trainbow. Hornby first offered the Class 800 back in 2018 and have produced models in a few different GWR liveries. This Trainbow train pack, Hornby reference R3872, was announced by Hornby around 2021 but was heavily delayed and finally arrived in May 2023. And I've held off reviewing this because I wanted to fit HM7000 sound decoders, and the Class 800 sound profiles were only released last month. The price of this train pack was subject to at least 2 price increases from Hornby between announcement and release, and the recommended retail price now stands at over £500. But the retailers are offering discounts and you can find it for less than £400 if you shop around. That's still a lot of money though, but it is in the same region as other similar train packs such as the APTs from Rapido and Hornby, and it's from a relatively new tooling, so we should be expecting quality models. I've wanted one of these 800s for ages because they operate around the area I live and I see them all the time whilst I'm on dog walks. I missed out on getting the earlier train packs that Hornby released, but I'm glad that I did because it meant that I could get Trainbow, and I'd much rather have the interesting and unique livery. Right, I'm going to get this out and take a few photos, and whilst I do, here's some background information on the Class 800 and specifically 800-008 Trainbow. The Class 800, branded as the Intercity Express Train or IET by the Great Western Railway, is a type of bi-mode multiple unit train built by Hitachi Rail. It's called bi-mode because it can be used on both electrified lines with overhead wires, but also has diesel generators allowing it to operate on unelectrified track. They were designed to replace the ageing fleet of intercity high-speed trains from the 80s, such as the Class 43s, and were introduced into service in the late 2010s. 36 5-car units were built for the GWR. Class 800/0 number 800-008 was delivered to the GWR on the 7th of June 2018 wearing a specially designed livery featuring the Pride flag on both driving cars. The livery was introduced in order to mark the Summer of Pride events taking place and to celebrate the diverse communities across the GWR network. The combination of a rainbow and a train gave rise to the unofficial name Trainbow. In 2022, the livery on 800-008 was changed to honour World War II codebreaker Alan Turing OBE. His name was added to the cab, and the rainbow now contains an array of letters that make up a code or cipher. Now back to the model. The Hornby train pack includes the full 5-car set made up of 2 cars with driving cabs and the 3 coaches that go between. As usual, the instructions for Hornby are quite brief, but they do tell you the order in which the cars should be coupled, which is helpful, although each car is also labelled A to E, and the coupling mechanism only allows them to be connected one way round, so it is quite straightforward. I'm starting with car E because that's the motorised unit on this model. The driving cabs carry the livery that was in use between 2018 and 2022, featuring the rainbow, which is nicely applied and even has the hashtag Trainbow and the Twitter account @GWR Help printed on the sides. There's been some slight colour bleed from the rainbow onto the roof, but it's not massively noticeable. That's the most obvious printed detail, but the train is covered in printed information, from GWR branding to customer information and warning notices. Every time I looked at the model, I spotted something different, and there's clearly been loads of thought and attention to detail put into this model. At the cab end, we've got the yellow warning panel with the GWR logo on it. We've got all the glazing for the cab windows and the lights, which looks really nice, and the windscreen wiper. It's hard to see inside the cab, but the console is decorated with a sticker, and because the cab's illuminated, that little bit of detail is really important. Something that isn't mentioned in the instructions anywhere as far as I can see is that the nose cone is removable to reveal a non-functioning modelled unit-to-unit coupling, which is a nice secret feature I suppose. That coupling sits in an M socket and can be removed so that 2 units can actually be coupled together if you have 2 of them. Moving down the model, the cab doorway is lovely, the recessed handrails and door handles look great. Unfortunately, if you look really closely through the door window, then wires are visible, but they're unlikely to be noticed from a distance. The first 3 windows on either side are blocked off on the motor car because this area contains the motor. The remaining 3 windows are glazed with seating visible though. The underframe isn't particularly impressive with just some moulded grills and yellow highlights, but the roof is a different story with panels, grills and fans running the full length. The fans are static, but they look really good. Then towards the back we've got the pantograph and the overhead line pickup equipment. This is all plastic, but the pantograph can be manually posed. It feels quite fragile though, and relies on small plastic parts bending and clipping into place. I'm not sure that's a brilliant design, and I'd be worried about snapping something over time. The rear door area features loads more printed information. It would have been incredible if the door closed indicator lights could have been illuminated, but they're just painted on this model. The rear of the unit features realistic looking corridor connection doors with glazing, which is unlikely to be seen but very impressive. Underneath we've got pickups on all wheels which collect power to supply a 5-pole motor with dual flywheels, and that drives both bogies. If you remove 3 screws underneath, this gives access to the 8-pin DCC socket, and you can see that I fitted a HM7000 decoder. There's a dedicated space for the speaker, and it will fit the largest enclosure which comes with the HM7000 decoder if you trim off the side mounting points. Unfortunately, there's not much room for the decoder itself, which sits a bit proud and causes the underframe to bulge slightly. There's definitely no room for a Stay Alive power pack either. Both the motor car and the dummy car have decoder sockets to control the cab lighting and directional cab lights. The forward cab lighting looks like this, and it's a nice bright white, and the rear lighting looks like this with the red tail lights. Hornby do provide some separate guidance on setting up the decoders for directional running. Unfortunately, the HM7000 decoders currently don't support consisting via Bluetooth control, which is a bit irritating, but that's a subject for another video. However, you can set the decoders up as a consist under standard DCC control so that the directional lighting will work simultaneously. Moving on to the coaches, and whilst design-wise they're fundamentally the same, they are unique when it comes to some of the details and printed information. The coaches are labelled B, C and D and carry the same base livery, which is very nicely applied in all cases. They're long coaches, I think the longest I own, coming at around 34 centimetres each, which means they'll need quite a bit of space when negotiating curves due to the overhangs. They all have pickups on one bogie, and this provides power for the warm white, almost orangey lighting that runs the length of the coach. There's a 1000 microfarad capacitor installed very discreetly with the lighting bar to stop any flickering. The interior is pretty bland though, with a single colour moulding for the seating. They feature a kinematic coupling system which pulls the coaches nice and close on straights, which looks really nice, but opens up on the curves to avoid the corridor connectors from coming together, and Hornby claim that this model can handle second radius curves. Finally, we've got the dummy car with the cab. This is essentially the same as the motor car, but none of the windows are blanked out because it doesn't include a motor. It does have space for a decoder underneath in the same way that the motor unit does, and this is to control the directional lighting and to provide optional sound. The difference is that the dummy car only has pickups on one bogie, and you'll see later that this makes it slightly less electrically reliable. So that's how the model looks, pretty stunning in my opinion. Let's get it on the track and see how it runs. I'll start by stating the obvious. When put together, this is a very long train. It's about 175 centimetres or 5 foot 9 inches. It does look a bit out of place on my roundy layout because it's barely got a chance to straighten out before it reaches another curve. And it doesn't help that I'm having to run this on the inner second radius loop because the coaches are so long that they collide with some of the retaining walls on the outer loop. However, as you'll see, this does prove that the model can easily cope with second radius curves, and the kinematic couplings, which look nice and close on the straights, slide out in the corners to stop the corridors from locking up. I've had this running for a good few hours over a period of a few weeks, and I'm pleased to say that I've not had a single derailment or mechanical issue with the model, so fundamentally it works and it runs very smoothly. The speed you're seeing now is just under 50% on the HM7000 DCC app controller, so there's plenty more pace in the motor, and it hasn't struggled at all on the flat. It pulls away and stops smoothly, although the acceleration and deceleration rates on the decoder need tweaking, as they're a bit abrupt at the moment, but that's not the fault of the model. Electrically, I've had a couple of occasions where it's been upset by dirty track and temporarily lost power but then got itself going again, but it's never stopped dead. And watching the footage back, I've noticed that the dummy car sometimes loses connection when going into the tunnel, resulting in the red lights going off. The dummy car only has pickups on that single bogie, which isn't ideal considering it contains a sound decoder. It's a shame that they couldn't have found a way to connect power throughout the train via the couplings, as is the case with a couple of other multiple units I've got. Slight loss of power isn't an issue with the lighting though because of the small capacitors, so the headlights, cab lights and coach lights never flicker, which is great. I think this is a lovely looking train, really detailed and to my eye a good representation of a Class 800. Is it worth the retailer price of £400? Well, you can make your own mind up, but personally I think it probably is. You're getting a complete train for that price, and the more I look at this model, the more I appreciate how much detail there is. It's a step up from some of the Hornby models I've seen recently. I do have some constructive criticism though. More decoration for the coach interiors would have been appreciated since they're illuminated. Pickups on both dummy car bogies would have been better. The pantograph seems quite fragile. Could they have used some metal parts? And I wonder how hard it would have been to motorise these. And it's a shame more thought wasn't put into how the decoder is housed, and there's no space dedicated to house a Stay Alive power pack. But I suspect, given that they take 8-pin decoders, that these models were designed before HM7000 was even a thing. But that's about it. Otherwise, it's a stunning model, it runs really well, and I'm very happy with it. I think it will look brilliant running on my new larger layout when that finally gets built. So that's about it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Special thanks to all the YouTube members and patrons for your support. It's very much appreciated, and your names are on screen now. Thanks for watching, and I will hopefully see you again soon.